welcome to this video segment that will walk through the TIPS Meeting Minutes form with special attention directed to how this form guides the problem-solving process. We also will highlight the Meeting Minutes form in use, along with the tasks a minute taker can follow before and during a TIPS problem-solving meeting. As you become aware, the TIPS problem-solving process begins with a discussion of problem identification and analysis, the elements we define for new problems. Then it waits for solutions to be infused into the targeted environment before examining the impact the solutions had on the problem of concern, or what we call our previously defined or old problems. As we'll see in a minute, these sections align with our TIPS Meeting Minutes form. Before looking more closely at our Meeting Minutes form, let's talk about the structure or the flow of a TIPS meeting. The meeting begins with the facilitator calling attention to the first item on the agenda. We then move into discussing our previously defined problems, asking the questions of whether solutions were implemented, discussing current data and whether or not our goal has been reached. Have things gotten better or worse? And then deciding what our next steps are related to that problem. We then move into talking about just general tasks and issues and administrative items. We then transition to talking about any new potential problems by identifying the precise problem statement, developing a solution plan, identifying the goals and data we need to gather. And then finally we wrap up the meeting by calling attention to the date and time of our next scheduled meeting and then evaluating our present meeting. Now let's turn our attention to our TIPS Meeting Minutes form. As we initially discussed, the first thing we do is call the meeting to order by indicating the people who are present and also the people who are filling the various roles. The facilitator then reviews the agenda items for the day. Also notice to the far right-hand corner, we also have a section for agenda items for the next meeting. This could be topics or content that comes up during the present meeting that we want to make sure that we address in the meeting that follows. We then move right into problem solving by discussing our previously defined problems. As we drop down to the middle of the form, we see our sections for where we define our precision elements, talk about the solutions that we've put in place in our action plans, along with a goal that we had established to determine success. And then our attention during this current meeting now will be directed at answering the question of, did we do what we said we were going to be doing, or our fidelity of implementation? And then, did we reach our goal? The next section of the TIPS Meeting Minutes form is devoted to the administrative and general tasks that our teams may need to discuss. And then finally we move into identifying potential new problems. At this section of the form, we add our precision statement, brainstorm our solutions, determine our action plan of who's going to do what by when, along with identify our goal and timeline. And then finally, identify our two forms of data we need to gather during this process, our fidelity data and our outcome data. And then finally, we wrap up our meeting by looking at our actual team. How was our meeting today? Was it a good use of our time? In general, are we doing a good job of completing tasks, tracking tasks? And are those solutions we're putting in place having the desired effect on student behavior? So as you can see, the flow of the meeting has followed the TIPS Meeting Minutes form, which can be used to guide the team during problem solving. In general, our TIPS Meeting Minutes form is also divided into 4 sections. The first top section is for the demographics of the meeting and our agenda items. The second section is where our old problems or our previously defined problems are documented. We then have a third section for our administrative tasks and general items. And then finally, our fourth section is dedicated to discussing and documenting our new problems. Let's take a look at some of these possible items and where they might be located or entered on the form. Think of yourself now as the minute taker. If the team was discussing planning for the next PTA meeting, where might you be focused on entering this information or this discussion? Or where would you put your cursor if you were working in the form within Microsoft Word? If you chose the Administrative General Information and Issues section, you would be correct. You'd be entering this in the first row across here. You would also talk about any of the discussion or tasks that you emerged from this discussion, and then also who's going to do what by when. How about now if the team is discussing that there's been 5 fights on the playground during the last week? Where would you as the minute taker or a team participant expect information to be entered on the form? If you said in the new problem section, you would be correct. You'd be building or defining the precision statement, following with solution actions, and then finally identifying your goal and also data sources you would need to be gathering. How about if we were checking in on our check-in, check-out implementation for a previously defined problem solution? At this point, we would be talking about an older problem or a previously defined problem. So we'd probably be entering information in this second section. How about now if the topic is talking about increasing gang recruitment for an agenda topic for today? If your eyes instantly went to the top section, specifically in the agenda item, you would be correct. At our next meeting now, we want to make note of the fact that we need to hear a report on the lunchroom needs. Where would you move your cursor item to if you were the minute taker? Or where would you expect the minute taker to be entering this information? Again, we remained in the top section. Specifically, we're going to be entering this in this section all the way over to the right, the agenda items for the next meeting. Now we're making note of the fact that the staff will need to complete a monthly fidelity check. Where would this information most likely be entered? If you said in the new problem section, you're correct. And if you instantly looked at the fidelity of implementation measure, that would be also correct. Now we have information that 3 of our students are not meeting the check-in, check-out goals. Where might this data be entered? At this point, we are probably discussing a previously defined problem. So we would want to be entering our information in this section, most likely in our current rate level per school day, looking at the effectiveness of the solution. What about now if we were talking about the plan for the school board report? Where might this information be entered? It would be most appropriate probably within the Administrative General Information section. Now we have information that we're seeing about 1 referral per day for our new problem. Where would this information go? We had a keyword in there saying new problem, so we're in the new problem section. Most specifically, probably entering this data with our current levels. As we work within infusing tips as our problem-solving process, we also want to be continually checking the health of our team. If we're using the TIPS Fidelity Implementation Checklist, you'll see item 10, that the team uses the TIPS Meeting Minutes form or equivalent. If you're using the TIPS Meeting Minutes form, you would be able to award yourself 2 points. Now let's look at some different information and also where it could be entered with some examples. If we're entering data for a previously defined problem, we would most likely be within our previously defined problem section and moving far along to the right-hand side in the effectiveness of solution. Now we're practicing monitoring the impact of the solution and comparing it against a goal. Again, we would probably be within the previously defined problem. Let's take a look at this. Our fidelity implementation was that we were going to email the counselors to see how many classes they've been working through with their guidance instruction and using Nice Talk. We're also going to be using a fidelity board to ask our second and third grade teachers if they've been using their procedures for rewarding using Nice Talk. Let's look at some of those data sources. First of all, we found out that 100% of the second and third grade classes have had that guidance lesson in using Nice Talk. We also look at our staff fidelity implementation board, and we see that the majority, or 92% of our teachers, have marked yes, that they've been using this instruction. Based on these data, we feel very confident that we can put down that we've been implementing with fidelity. Let's look at the effectiveness of solution. Our goal for this precise problem was that we wanted to reduce to 2 or fewer referrals per month, or 0.11 per day for the next month. We look over at our current rate and level, and we see that we are at 0.06 a day, or 1 across the entire month. Based on that comparison, we can confidently mark that we are improved and our goal has been met. We also are going to be entering information for our new problems. Again, dropping down towards the bottom of the page in our section for new problems, we're going to be identifying our precise problem statements. The minute taker will type those into the box. We would also be identifying the goal for the problem during this meeting. So the minute taker will be documenting our established goal, what and by when. Solution actions also will be identified with the action plan for who's going to do it by when. And finally, our 2 sources of data would be established. What are we going to use to measure fidelity? Or how are we going to know that our solutions were put in place as we expected them to be? And when are we going to know when the problem has been solved? Or what is our outcome data? Again, the minute taker will be documenting this in the meeting minutes form during our meeting. Across our Tips through training, we've talked about the various roles and responsibilities on the team. The minute taker is the primary person working within the meeting minutes forms. There are various aspects of the role that need to be completed before the meeting, during the meeting, and then after the meeting. Primary obligations before the meeting: the minute taker gathers any information for the agenda, prepares and updates the TIPS meeting minute form so that's ready for the upcoming meeting, and then is also be prepared to be able to project the meeting minutes as they're entering data during the meeting. So they may need to make sure that there's an LCD projector or some other type of projection system in the room where the meeting will be held. During the meeting, the minute taker records the decisions and notes on the TIPS meeting minutes form. Asks for any clarification, for any areas that are omitted or steps that are omitted, or things that are a little bit vague. And then, of course, actively participates in the discussion. After the meeting, the minute taker cleans up and reformats anything that he or she feels is necessary, and then disseminates the meeting minutes to their team members. Not surprisingly, one of the skills the minute taker needs is to be able to feel comfortable working within a word processor, such as Microsoft Word. Copying items, pasting items, adding rows, saving the file. They also have to be able to listen to the discussion that's going on during the meeting and paraphrase critical information. And of course, be able to navigate quickly around the meeting minutes form. Let's take a quick look at some excerpts of a TIPS meeting.
Okay, everyone, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for being on time. We have 45 minutes scheduled for this meeting. Our next meeting is for April 1st, and we have an agenda. And our agenda today is to review our Swiss data from the last meeting and update the status of how we're doing, do a data review, do we have any new problems, and
Megan, what was our goal? Let's see, it says, our goal was to reduce the frequency of problem behaviors in the 6th and 7th grade classrooms by about half for the year, and to see no more than 8 referrals for the month.
Okay, and we had decided expectations with them again. Okay.
Oh, wait, I think we missed a part of our problem. I only have for the minutes the who, the what, the where, and when the problems are happening for these students.
Shane, what did the data say about the possible motivation for these behaviors?
Well, as we scroll down, Lola, you can see the motivation is basically peer attention.
Okay. So Megan,
Okay.
are you clear now? Do you have you got the why in there now?
Yeah, I've
okay.
got it now.
Peer attention.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. I'm sorry. I don't think I have all the information here in the minutes. I'm sorry, guys. What did we?
Okay, so
what was our
let's
decision?
go back. So what we're saying is that we want to review whether staff are handling the reports the way that we asked them to, and
Okay.
record possibly how many they're doing specifically for 3rd grade. And then we're talking about involving the parents, sending a message to the parents about what we're trying to address.
Well, and do the fidelity checks and record the number
Good.
of reports each day.
Right, but this is
Right.
just for 3rd grade.
Right.
Right, we're
Just
going to be really specific. We've narrowed down our problem.
I think so. Let's do it for this month and see if the problem behaviors for those kids at that time decrease by next month.
You know what, let's use grade level meetings for this. Even though the problem is coming from 3rd grade, let's make sure that all staff review the procedures with the,
Sure.
with parents and themselves and the students. But let's put a heavier emphasis on 3rd grade.
Great.
So who's going to inform the grade level teams, just review that with them?
I think I'll put that on my task list.
Okay, and let's see, when will that happen?
Grade level meetings are next week. I'll pop in each one of those and encourage them to put a note in the parent newsletter.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a plan now to follow up with the 6th and 7th.
I'm sorry. I know I keep missing these things, but I didn't actually hear us say what our goal was for that 3rd grade problem behavior.
So we don't
With
have
all the
it.
other pieces, but I didn't hear the goal.
Okay.
You're right. What we're looking for is that last year the 3rd graders had 131 ODRs, or 30% of total. And I think what we need to do is find a goal so that they get no more than 10 ODRs per month or fewer than 90 ODRs for the year.
Okay, that's a good goal.
Thanks, Megan, for bringing us back to that and keeping us on task. And let's. Anything else before we close the meeting?
No?
Okay, so just a quick reminder, our next meeting is April 1st, and that's still good with everyone? It's on your calendars?
Yeah.
And we really did a nice job starting on time this time, so let's keep it up.
Now let's walk through the steps that the minute taker can follow as he or she updates previous meeting minutes and prepares them for an upcoming meeting. Here's a quick overview of how the minute taker can prepare meetings for an upcoming meeting. This is an example of the October 1st meeting minutes. The minute taker is going to prepare them for the November 3rd meeting. The first thing we'll want to do is make sure that she saves that file. So we're going to go through saving it for the November 3rd meeting. Once that's saved under that date, let's start updating some of the information in the top section of the form. If we look across at our meetings and roles, we can see the dates and the times. As we work across in the roles, we see that the facilitator for our October meeting was Amy Jones, but for November meeting it's going to be Justin Carr. The minute taker and the data analyst are all going to be the same people. We're also going to be in the media center and at the same time. So right now we're going to go ahead and update this meeting. We're going to take Amy Jones out for right now, and we're going to put Justin Carr in as the facilitator. Now we know our next meeting is going to be on 12/5, so we're going to enter that in the same time, and we also know that the role is going to be filled by the same people. Now we need to work down towards where the team members are, where we took attendance. See these X's along the team members' names? We need to simply remove those, so we can highlight those and delete the X's. During the upcoming meeting on November 3rd, we will go ahead and enter the X's in alongside the team members who are present. Now we also need to work through the same thing with the agenda. First thing might be the easiest is to go through and remove the X's. Again, those will be input at the time during the meeting when we've talked about those items. We also see some items that we need to remove and some items that we need to update. For example, if we look at item number 2, parent involvement, we're not going to be talking about that next meeting, so we can delete that. The staff booster training, that also won't be under discussion. Now let's look over to the agenda items from the next meeting that we recorded during the October meeting. We had to talk about the winter incentives. I'm going to select that, and I can either cut and paste or I can just drag it over. Same things about we have to order more goodies for the store. Select that, copy and paste, or drag it over. Now, if there were other items that I also knew that either the facilitator or anyone else on the team had let me know about, we could also add these here. So now we have our first 3 items for the meeting. Item number 4 is a new problem discussion, and then we move into our eval of meeting. Now last time we did the tips fidelity checklist. This time we're not going to, we're just going to use our regular checklist at the end of the meeting minutes. So we'll take that part off. Now this section is all ready for our upcoming meeting. Let's walk down now to the previously defined problems. We look at this first problem here, and we scan across, and we also see that the effectiveness of the solution, it was improved but not to goal. We'll probably, once again, talk about this problem at the next meeting. So what we need to do is go ahead and remove some of the check marks from those boxes for the fidelity of implementation, because we'll want to discuss that again, and also from the effectiveness. We're also going to want to go ahead and remove our current levels. The data analyst may tell us what that current level is that we can add here prior to the meeting, or else we'll add it during the meeting. Now we'll drift down to the next section. We see the parent involvement and staff booster training. Again, we know those aren't going to be discussed this time, so we're going to go ahead and we're just going to delete those. And we know we look up here, we have to talk about the winter incentives. I'm going to copy that and paste that right down here. We also know we're going to have to talk about ordering more goodies for the store. I'm going to copy that and paste that here because that's not related to our problems. That's related to just administrative and general information. Now what we need to do is go ahead and look at the new problem from our October meeting. This now will need to be transferred up into our previously defined problems. Now if we notice here, we're going to need to make another row. The easiest way to do this is to place your cursor all the way over in the far right hand column and hit the tab key. You see how that made another row? The next thing we'll have to do is copy and paste our fidelity of implementation, check, and also our effectiveness of solution, check. Now we have a row ready for our previous new problem to move up into our older problem section. The easiest way to do this is just copy and paste or cut and paste. Now the first 4 columns are the ones that we're going to be copying or cutting and pasting. You can go ahead and highlight those up into the goal and timeline. And the easiest thing is to go ahead and cut because then it's already removed from that row. And now go ahead and place the cursor and paste. And you see how it all transitioned up. So it was previously a new problem during our October meeting, now falls under the previously defined problems. So we can check in about the fidelity of implementation and to see whether we have reached our goal based on the solutions we put in place. Now we can walk down, and I might remove some of this space here, and remove our final little bits and pieces from what was our new problem during our October meeting. And now this section is ready for me to input anything about the precise problem statements that maybe the data analyst will provide for me beforehand, or as I enter in the meeting. Now, I was lucky and fortunate enough that the data analyst did provide me already with a possible new problem. I'm going to copy that from his email, and I'm going to paste that right into the new problem section. Now, I will just need current levels. And he told me that the current levels at this point are 0.5 per day. And that was for the month of October. Now this is ready for our discussion during the meeting, when I will input the solution actions we decide upon, our action plan for putting those in place, the who and the by when, our goal, both the what and the when, and then our data sources. How are we going to check to see whether solutions have been put in place as we would hope they had been, our fidelity and implementation measure, and then our outcome measure, so that we have data that we can compare against our goal to see if we have resolved the problem. Now, the last section that we need to do is go down to our evaluation and team meeting and remove those X's. Now we can scroll back up at the top and go ahead once again and save this file. It will now be ready for me to pull up during our November meeting. Here are some additional resources that are available to anyone on the TIPS team. One in particular is through our information blog. Once you arrive at the tips2 info blogspot.com, click on the skill building resources. As you scroll down, you'll find two critical resources for minute takers. One is a video review of how you work through Microsoft Word. Another one is a hard copy showing you some shortcuts on how you can quickly navigate through Microsoft Word. Feel free to download these and use any of these resources that help you become more effective and efficient.